To begin, I would suggest that three phenomena in human antiquity fused to create the category of behaviors we call religion. In chronological order, they are the somber respect for deceased leaders evidenced by artifacts found at ancient burials. Second, the perceived emergence of ancestors configured as spirits who enforce traditional ways of living on their descendants. And number three, the affirmation by co-descendants with a common identity and shared fate that foster cooperative observance of traditions and solve collective problems. Imagine living 40,000 years ago. Once we as a species had become well established. You live in a group that fluctuates between 40 and 75 people, consisting mainly of close relatives and their spouses, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, and cousins. You rely on each other for most everything: food, protection from predators, protection from raids by other groups, and relationships with more distant kin, your trading partners for additional resources, including mates. You have no viable individual identity except for the relatives among whom you were raised. If for some reason you were forced to live on your own, you would have zero chance of surviving and reproducing. Mutual dependence assured conformity in matters that affected communal well-being. Today there is an air of sadness and anxiety because a much admired leader, your uncle, died from wounds he received conducting a raid on rivals. Although everyone fears your uncle's spirit will be unpredictable, all close kinsmen assemble for his burial. A hole has been dug and your uncle's corpse placed in it, along with special paraphernalia that facilitate his transition into the world of spirits. Your community's emissary to the spirit world, the ceremonial overseer, hovers around the body, rhythmically chanting and repeating a series of stylized movements. This wing-bone flute, found at an ancient burial cave, may have been played at funeral ceremonies. With traditional sounds and gestures, a breathless body is thought to be transformed from a lifeless corpse into a revivified spirit. On what basis can we say that ancient burials evidence the emergence of religion? Neanderthal graves as early as 60,000 BCE have been found with animal antlers on the skulls and flower fragments next to the bodies, indicating ritualized burials. Excavations of human grave sites all over the world produced an array of ceremonial objects, like the buzzard-wing flute you just heard, that indicate ancient funerals were ritualized. By joining together the antiquity of funerals with claims of ancestral spirituality, we can infer that proto-religion began when prestigious leaders were interred by those who venerated them. Funerals were solemn occasions for witnessing the transpiration of an emancipated corpse. Fearful anticipation was also part of the burial, because who knew whether the spirit's actions would be beneficent or punitive? The spirit could reward its descendants for following the traditions or cause misfortune for failure to do so. As a result, co-descendants policed each other's behavior religiously, fearing that violation of ancestral dictates would cause the spirits to seek retribution. I ask that you keep an open mind about the natural history of religion as I describe its emergence. Evolutionary investigation of any species requires looking far back into its developmental history. If you can avoid projecting backwards the familiar template of contemporary Western religion, if for a moment you can imagine yourself living in the circumstances of early humanity, my story can make more sense. After all, evolutionary explanations must reflect environments in deep time that were very different than those of today. It's difficult to imagine the time span during which religion evolved, but even though modernity may limit our deep vision, we must nonetheless imagine evolutionary processes that are well beyond our personal experience. You might wonder why afterlife spirits are thought to exist and interact with the living. Why do traditional peoples universally claim that ancestral spirits intervene in their lives? Why should a scientific understanding of religion pay attention to claims about spirits? Although perhaps hard for us to acknowledge, life most everywhere in time and space has been perceived as dominated by spirits. Every event of consequence is thought to have been initiated by spirits upon which communal and individual welfare depends. In tradition-centered societies, decisions of living leaders may be questioned, but the wisdom of an inspired ancestor cannot. Maintaining traditional ways served the inclusive fitness of ancestors and their descendants. Religion arose and is sustained thanks to the fitness promotion of genetic and fictive kin culturally adapted to cooperate religiously. Powerful people concerned with their posterity aspire to have their lofty reputations continue after death. But only the most honored will be remembered by more than one generation. Although a righteous burial cannot preserve the flesh, it can help preserve one's memory. An extravagant funeral conserves the immortality of a notable ancestor. As we say, a loved one never dies, but survives in spirit. In all cultures, places are selected for the remains of ancestors, and those places are often visited ceremonially. Graveyards have always been considered dangerous because, especially at night, they are haunted by unpredictable spirits. In modern life, pseudo-supernaturalism is alive and well in popular culture. Witness the comic books, movies, television shows, and video games in which people or creatures with superhuman powers save lives or cause trouble. Today, more money is spent on Halloween costumes than on Christmas decorations. Almost a century ago, Oxford anthropologist Edward Tyler reported some form of animism in the religions of all primitive peoples. By animism, Tyler meant life organized according to the requirements of posthumous spirits who were considered present even after physical death. The sanctification of ancestral spirits gave rise everywhere, he argued, to the practice of ritual sacrificing in which food, blood, or other valuables were offered to petition or appease the spirits. Darwin wrote that if religion included unseen spiritual agencies, then religion would be universal. Emil Durkheim considered ancestral spirits an elementary form of religious life. He wrote that in ancient Greece and Rome, a genius was a guardian spirit assigned to particular people. When a person or lineage was outstanding, credit was given not to the person, but to his or her genius, the spirit responsible for shaping character and success. The word charismatic was coined to mean a person gifted by spirits to be a leader. By celebrating traditional rites, Durkheim wrote, the clan seeks to win the favor of ancestors. An ancestral spirit can be the spirit of a rock, tree, spring, cave, or animal. The word spirits, concluded Durkheim, is the only term suitable for these ancestral personages. But the recognition of ancestral spirits is not limited to times past. Today, Hinduism features Brahman spirits, Taoism has Tao, and many Native American cultures accept the influence of the Great Spirit. Christianity rejects the authority of ancestral lineages, but retains the Holy Spirit as an active emanation of God and Jesus, exerting positive influence on every Christian. Ancestor-descendant relationships based on the kin selection model should constitute the skeleton of an evolutionary analysis of religion. Valued ancestors are dead, but are not perceived as gone. Understanding religion requires an appreciation of the selection pressure humans overcame through fealty to traditions. Living persons have dates of expiration, but traditions do not. But in making my case in this video, I am not presuming, nor do I need to presume, the existence of unverifiable, unfalsifiable spirits. Like all supernaturals, spirits whose presence is invisible to the senses cannot, from an evolutionary perspective, be presumed to exist. What can be verified, however, are the communicated claims made by traditional peoples that the spirit world does exist, and that ancestors as spirits are active in it. What has become adaptive in tradition-based religion is willingness to cooperate communally as if commanded to do so. Religious conformity explains why some level of cooperation is selected over total self-interest in human populations. The sanctification of influential ancestral spirits is more firmly entrenched than we might think. Ancestors communicate with descendants by various means, including dreams, which can be seen as passageways between the world of the living and that of the spirits. Bodily possession results from enthusiasm, a word from the Greek meaning possession by a spirit. Many religions have intermediaries, such as shamans, who facilitate communication between spirits and those seeking their guidance. The rites of some religions feature processions of those occupied by spirits. The spiritually possessed dance, shout, or chant rhythmically to induce trances. In charismatic Christian ritual, individuals solicit bodily possession by the Holy Spirit. For Pentecostals seeking eternal salvation, baptism in the Holy Spirit provides direct experience with the divine. Keep in mind that enchanted participants in ceremonies do not represent spirits. Rather, their bodies are hosts to spirits. Spirits are thought to enter and exit bodies through bodily openings. Did you know that sneezing and yawning are driven by spirits? A sneeze expels a spirit from the body, so we respond, "Bless you." Yawns catch on from one person to the next. Social yawning is considered evidence of spirits moving from one person to another through open mouths. People who talk energetically to one another are said to be in spirited conversation. Napoleon once quipped, "I am my own genealogy." In what could have been a retort, Mark Twain famously said, "A self-made man is about as likely as a self-laid egg." Hereditary privilege based on kinship is common in all primate and human societies. As such, reputational value is carried by families more so than individuals, because one's reputation is tied to the reputation of those who came before. Just as genetic relatedness is inherited patrimony, traditions preserve the rights of ownership based on long periods of use. A person may not like his family's genes or culture, but he will often be reminded of where he comes from by his appearance or mannerisms resembling someone in his family. In conclusion, religion first emerged when kinship-based populations saw fit to bury their dead to accommodate spirituality, in accordance with the ways of previous generations. In the beginning was the conforming claim that spiritual versions of ancestors closely monitor the behavior of each descendant in every generation. Throughout history, important people are less afraid of death than they are of oblivion. They know one day they will die, so they go to great lengths not to be forgotten. Their spirits do not need mortality to be influential. For them, mortality is truly immaterial. Thank all of you for listening.